Great job. Let's give our panel another hand around of applause. I think you guys brought everything home. Two questions that we had while you were down there and for the break in preparation of when I got here, some people posed. Can't hear me?
It's directional, so you have to speak right into the...
Okay, all right, Fred.
Go ahead.
Only man on the podium.
That's right.
And he's being bossy.
Trying to be useful. Trying to be
Useful.
Helpful.
Oh, helpful. Okay. One of our previous speakers stated that women recidivism is for women. The recidivism is not as dangerous, but it isn't. It is costly and repetitive. So, as practitioners and within the state of New Jersey, what would be your suggestion, possibly, as practitioners, of how we would work with a low number of women? And we know that they're costing the taxpayers money because of the repetitiveness of how they come back. What would be some suggestions in terms of working with those women or future programming for small CBOs or as the state moves forward?
I don't know if the mics are...
I don't know if this is on, so. It's that button right there, Fred.
Fred, who's Fred?
Yeah, Ralph, Fred.
Whatever your name is.
I'm not sure what you mean by dangerous, because
Well, one of the
if you're talking about,
it was for the violent reoffending. One of the previous presenters had that in their PowerPoint presentation.
right, I guess my first reaction is dangerous for whom? You know, a lot of the women that we see have long histories in prostitution, and so that was sort of my knee-jerk reaction: is dangerous for whom? I mean, you know, I think we're all talking about this. We already know what the answer is. It's access to services. You know, whether there are lots of barriers that women face, and it's costing everyone money, and you know, taxpayers or otherwise. But it's costing people money when people cannot get access until they get involved in the criminal justice system. For those of us who run services that are non-criminal justice programs, it's very difficult to get into residential treatment programs. If you don't have services for somebody to watch your kids, the number of programs that accept women and children are minute, if at all, in the state. I think there's at least one that I can think of. So those kind of targeted services that meet the basic needs of people, I think, answer some of those questions. Substance abuse, employment, housing is a big issue, and I think you kind of addressed that. I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with the gender issue, because I see lots of homeless men, so it's hard for me to advocate only for the women that I serve. But I mean, having those kind of those support services and doing that in a preventative way. We don't like to invest in prevention because most things funding follows reactionary situations, right? But I watch women not being able to get into services because they're not yet in drug court. They're not yet in the county jail. They're not yet in prison. They're not yet on parole. The same can be true for men, but for women who may have custody of their children more often than their male counterpart, I think that's where we end up seeing a lot more expenditures related to where you put kids in foster care and what have you.
As part of that services, I would say family services are very important. CEC that runs a strong family service program and connected with a number of universities, and I think that would, if you're looking at cost effectiveness, that's one area that providing family services to people, particularly women with children, is, I think, a very, very important area to invest in.
Okay. Anything from you, Keisha, on that? That's fine. Let's see. We had the terminology that said gender responsiveness really applies to both men and women now. We initially started when we were opening the doors for research and more research being done as it related to women offenders, but now we've heard from previous speakers, and the question was, would you say that for men, in terms of treatment, case management, et cetera, that men, there's usually a lower service for men in terms of gender responsiveness because they don't disclose to the mental health challenges, the rape, and the trauma as women may be? Do they more frequently disclose, or are we just saying that it happens more to them? I think that's how they were saying it. Put that question.
I think that's an excellent question, and that a lot of guys, I think, have a much more difficult time disclosing that type of trauma than women. But that's anecdotal and conjecture, so I'm not real sure about that. I think that's in areas that need to be studied. I think there are some studies out there about trauma in men, and when men do disclose, they have suffered significant trauma also.
Well, they don't disclose when you don't ask, too. I mean, that's one of the challenges in the
Right.
field that we have to recognize. I mean, it's the same thing with family violence. I mean, we have to all own that. You don't ask the kind of questions, you're not going to get the answer. So, and I'm not an expert related to that, but I think that we have to look at, is it a criminogenic need? And I'm not so sure that it manifests itself the same way. We do seeking safety for men in where it's appropriate, and we're finding more and more. And it's not always. I think when we think of trauma informed, you're thinking of sexual trauma, but there's other forms of trauma that those kinds of interventions attend to. So, but you don't get, the answer to the question never asked is always no, or something like that. I think we have to ask those kinds of questions. I mean, family violence is probably the batters intervention programs get a bad rap. And I know why, because they're usually poorly run and they're not evidence-based. I mean, that's reality. We run one. We had to go to Canada to find a model that had research behind it and that it was based on any of the interventions that we know. So we have to do a better job of providing interventions that are attending to criminogenic needs of the offenders that we see. So gender responsive, I think that you have to be person-centered, and you have to know your clients. So that's whether you're serving women, or you're serving men, or you're serving both.
There's a huge literature on trauma and how it manifests in different people. So it's not like we don't know men have been traumatized. Got to ask them, but their behaviors can be categorized as experiencing trauma. And asking the questions. It's amazing what we ask really good questions when we collect data, until you're then analyzing your data and you're like, I didn't ask this. Like, it's so obvious after the fact. And then you got to go back to get more funding and IRB and.
Yeah.
Those were the only two that I had presented to me, Dean. We would like to thank you again, unless there are other questions that were for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. You just wait here. I'm going to close things down. So, on behalf of Dean Farmer and on the behalf of the staff of the Evidence-Based Institute, I want to thank you for coming today. I hope you got something useful. Let me just see a show of hands. Who got something useful? Oh, wow, 2 hands. The PowerPoints, the video will all be on the School of Criminal Justice website. The Evidence-Based Institute website is under construction. The School of Criminal Justice website is under construction. My whole life feels like it's under construction. And if you want and really desperately need this and can't find it, just email me, and we'll get you a copy. Also, we're going to be writing to you and asking you to give us some feedback about these 2 days. This is the first time we've done this, but this won't be the last time. We want to meet your needs. We also won't do this just here in Newark. We're going to come to other locations in the state, make it easier for people to get to. Parking here makes it easy to do it here. That was supposed to be funny, right? But our agreement with the Attorney General's office is to go regional, and we look forward to coming to different regions of the state. Sometimes you get a different group of people in the room if you go south and you go north. And we're also looking for ideas. Your agencies are an opportunity for us to make a difference. The work you're doing is related to the evidence-based practice in ways that we now know and could know more about. We're new, so we have a lot to learn, but we are extremely motivated to be in relationship to your agenda in a way that helps you move forward and become more effective. So thank you for coming. Please be in touch, and we'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you.